Hi, friends. Welcome back. It's June 1st episode of the Diet Diaries, which is insane. Ben is going to be 14 on Friday, June 5th. I can't fucking believe it. It's wild. He's about to finish 8th grade and go to high school, and wow, it's a lot. So let's dive in today. I talked about weight loss last week. I'm talking about weight loss today, and I'm going to be talking about weight loss for another few weeks. Because you know what? 99% of the women that come to me want to lose weight. And for some reason, I've had a very hard time talking about it over the last 5 years because there's just so much fucking noise around it. There's so much pick a team and body positivity and intuitive eating and GLP-1s and anti-diet and health at every size and all this shit. And everyone thinks that it's just, you have to pick one and do one. Well, guess what? It's not that fucking simple. Humans are not that simple. And the core, I think, what I've discovered after years and years of therapy and coaching and doing a lot of work on myself, and not that I obviously am perfect or an expert, but what I have truly realized and believe and has helped me so much is accepting the fact that two things can and will be true. That we can feel and believe two things that seemingly are opposites, that don't go together. And we can want things that seem like maybe they are in opposition of each other. And that doesn't mean that we're wrong. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. It means that it's fucking messy and things are not as black and white as we want them to be. And so weight loss doesn't really fall into that category for people. People are very black and white in terms of thinking about weight loss and how they handle weight loss. And it's been tricky for me, guys. I'm just being honest. It's been really tricky for me because here's the thing. I absolutely coach weight loss. I work with women who want to lose weight. As I said before, truly, literally 99% of women that come to me, and not even just for one-on-one coaching, women that I've met in workshops, in small group settings, in like free things I've done, and people that randomly DM me, people that, friends and family that talk to me about things are talking about wanting to lose weight. And it is a whole separate topic as to why you feel like you want to lose weight and how much weight you're talking about, because I'm going to do an entire episode, it might be next week, that when your body is much closer and you are someone who's like, I want to lose 5 or 10 pounds, that's very, very different than someone who is carrying 20, 30, 40 plus pounds of additional body fat. It's very different for a lot of different reasons. In terms of what weight loss looks like, how easy or not it is to lose that weight, some of the approaches that you might need to take, and the connection back to your mental health. And I'm going to talk about that because it's very important, and it is some of the nuance that people just don't want to acknowledge. But what I want to talk about today is my approach to weight loss. And I've talked about this before, but I want this episode to be crystal fucking clear, so that you know when you're listening to me, oh, she's the person for me. I know she's going to help me figure this out for myself and follow through, right? Because I share a lot of skills on here, but let's be honest, right? There's a big difference between you listening to me talk about these skills and then you actually figuring out how to implement that for more than 5 days on your own, right? It's kind of fun to listen to a podcast episode and like, oh my God, that was such a great idea. And then you go off and do it for a couple days, but then life happens. And then it's like, fuck, well, that blew up. There I am again. I didn't follow through. I can't follow through. Nothing ever works. Well, that's not why. That's not why you're not following through. It's because everything I talk about is about behavior change, and changing your behavior takes time. It takes work. It needs support. It needs accountability. It needs strategy. It needs strategy that matches your life. And I can't match up everyone's life when I'm recording a podcast. I can give you some things to try. So all this to say is that the way that I coach weight loss is a side effect. You could also think of it as a byproduct of the work that we do to change your behavior around eating. So here's what I mean by that. If you are someone who is struggling with emotional eating that is showing up in the form of like eating a shit ton of snacks at night after your kids go to bed, right? Kids go to sleep and it is like all bets are off. You start with good intentions, but then without fail, most nights of the week, you end up plowing through a lot of food. And then you wake up in the morning and you promise to be good. And the day kind of starts off well. And then Sometimes in the afternoon, it starts to go downhill. So as soon as you start to get tired, get more stressed, the day is going on, your boss is being annoying, you're running late, you've got a kid's soccer game, another kid is sick, and your partner's traveling, and shit is hitting the fan. It gets harder and harder to be good, and you find yourself by the end of the day really like losing it again. And so as a result of this, and this is like a very kind of generalized, little picture that I'm painting, you have been steadily gaining weight, right? And this picture that I'm painting is coming straight from kind of an amalgamation of several different client stories, right? Clients who come to me, I'm thinking of a couple women in particular who are like, I have been gaining like 10 pounds a year for the last couple of years. Like I have steadily, in the last 3 years, I've gained 20 to 30 pounds, right? So many women I have worked with have come to me in this situation. And they've tried different things to get them. They've tried different diets and all the shit that's out there. I don't need to name it. They've tried it. And in some cases it's worked. They've lost some weight, but it hasn't worked because it's come back. And so they come to me and they're like, I need to lose weight. But I also feel really shitty in my body. I feel shitty around food. I'm not eating well. It's really hard to eat healthy. I find myself just like reaching for stuff that's convenient all the time. And so the way we approach this is not by just looking at the food itself and slapping a Band-Aid on that and saying, okay, well, here's what you're going to eat for breakfast, and here's what you're going to eat for lunch, and here's what you're going to eat for dinner, because you don't need me for that, right? You can go on ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT for a meal plan, and following it would be a whole other thing, but that is not going to change anything. That's not going to change your behavior. It's going to change what you eat. And your issue, the reason why you have gained weight, and the reason that you can't lose it is a behavior issue. It's not a food issue. And so that's why weight loss happens as a byproduct of the work we do, because we are changing your behavior around food. And so when you start to identify, well, why is it that I'm eating a shit ton of snacks every night after my kids go to bed? And you start to build up skills to start to work through that, to start to tolerate a lot of like the really challenging, uncomfortable, hard emotions that come up, the urges to eat. We start looking at what you're eating over the course of the day and how that is or isn't working for you and the role that's playing in what's happening at night, because 1,000% it is. We start looking at the differences between your weekdays and your weekends and how you're eating. We start looking at the language you're using, the way you're talking to yourself, how you feel about your body, the way you're thinking about and kind of categorizing different foods in your brain. We start looking at all of that, right? Your behaviors, your thoughts, feelings, behaviors around food. That starts to impact what you're eating. It starts to regulate it. And when you start to be able to eat less snacks at night, not because you're not buying snacks, because you're afraid to have them around, or because we've set a rule that you're not eating past 8 p.m., or because we've replaced, the flaming hot Cheetos with carrot and celery sticks because they're also crunchy with some, cayenne pepper sprinkled on top, or carrots dipped in salsa. You guys, that was like my fucking go-to solution for 10 years. Carrots dipped in salsa. When you start actually eating less of those snacks because we've addressed all these other behaviors, you will lose weight as a side effect of that. And that is a totally different way into weight loss than doing all the things that I just listed off 3 minutes ago to lose weight, right? Swapping in things, setting rules, not buying things, and all that stuff. Because that might work. That absolutely can help you lose weight, but it is not going to help you lose weight and keep it off. And it is not going to change your mental state around any of this. It is going to keep you as panicked and as obsessed and as stressed as ever. Because losing weight does not make you feel better around food. Changing your behavior around food makes you feel better around food. And that is like one of the biggest myths out there, that prioritizing weight loss and losing weight is the answer to all of your problems around food. Losing weight does not make you feel better around food. Just like it doesn't make you inherently feel better about your body. That's really a separate topic. Losing weight does not make you feel less stressed around food. It just makes you lose weight. You feel less obsessed around food. You feel less out of control around food. You feel less consumed. You feel less like it has this vice grip hold on you when you look at the way you're behaving around food and you learn how to change those behaviors, which is what we do in coaching. And when you change those behaviors, then it changes what you're eating. That, right? The behavior is the how and the why. We change the how and the why. That changes the what. And when you change the what, you lose weight. Right? right? Because if you start to look at how and why you're having all those snacks every night, and you start to learn how to cope with that and deal with that, you will start changing what you're eating and how much you're eating. And that decreases your overall caloric intake, and then you lose weight, right? Because you lose weight when you eat less calories than your body needs in a day, right? From very boiling down as simple as possible, that's how weight loss happens. That's how GLP-1s work. That's how keto works. That's how low carb works. That's how every single fucking diet you've ever done works. When you eat less than your body needs in a day. That is how GLP-1s work. They're not changing your metabolism. They do not do that. I know people think that. They don't. There are certain medications that are going through FDA approval now that potentially could impact your metabolism. These do not. They make you eat less food through a couple of different mechanisms which are not fully understood yet. It is impacting the brain in some way, that the food noise thing. But again, you're eating less, you're losing weight because you're eating less. It's that simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying the simplicity of the concept is there. So all this to say, right? Someone comes to me and they're like, I want to lose 10 pounds. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, that's fine. You can want to lose 10 pounds, but that's not our primary goal, right? That's like a tertiary goal, because I want to know, well, why do you want to lose those 10 pounds? What's caused you? Have you gained? Is that like a recent weight gain? Has it happened over time? What's happening with you around food? Like, what are your issues? What's your deal with food? And because then we start to look at that, at all of your behaviors and like all of your stresses and all of your neuroses and all of like the shit that you do, all like the secret single, quote unquote, secret single behavior that you do when your partner isn't there. Maybe you are single, all the stuff that you're ashamed to tell people, that's either made you gain that weight or made it impossible to lose, or you're gaining, losing, whatever it is. We look at that shit because that's where actual change happens. The how and the why. And then that impacts the what. When you only look at the what, it's just a Band-Aid. And so weight loss happens, again, as a side effect, as a byproduct, which is so fucking cool, because then we're not getting on the scale every day, like ride or die. What the fuck's going to happen if this number is up or down? What mood am I going to be in? Because you start to feel so good because of the way that you're feeling around food, and the noise is turning down, and you're able to make much more thoughtful choices, and you're feeling better, and you feel less panicked and consumed and obsessed and freaking out. And you're like, holy shit, I'm just like a happier fucking person. And then there's less emphasis on what happens on the scale. So if the scale is up, you're like, okay, I still feel really good about X, Y, and Z, right? This is happening for a client of mine right now who came to me and was like, I really want to lose 7 pounds. Her body's very close to the place that it wants to be. And when you're very close to the place you want to be, it is much harder to lose weight. I'm going to do another separate episode about that, because that's actually a really important thing that needs to be discussed more openly. And in our work together, she has not seen a change in the scale, but she has seen some major fucking changes in her behaviors around food, specifically around sweets and sugar foods, right? Where she is able to go out to dinner and have a bite of a dessert and be like, you know what, this isn't even that good. Things that she was really excited about. Or to have certain snack foods in her house that historically have been hugely problematic for her. And for her to have them around and be like, I don't even want that. I'm not even interested in that. Or to have some and then put it away. And she's like, they're small little things. But she said to me last week, she's like, it feels like such a huge deal to me. Like, it's such a shift. And so she's feeling so good about that the fact the scale hasn't moved, like, does it feel frustrating to her? Yeah, I'm not going to lie and sit here and tell you that she doesn't care. But it's not like she's not losing her mind over it because she feels so good about all these other changes. And so that just adds so much, like, such a lovely layered piece to this work. That when you are not relying on weight loss as your only measure of progress, source of happiness, and how you feel about yourself, everything changes. Everything changes. And that's why I coach how I coach. And so if someone comes to me and like they don't want to look at their behavior around food, or they don't really have any behavioral issues, because yeah, there's a few unicorns out there that don't, then I'm not the coach for you, right? You're not coming to me. You're going to go work with someone else who's going to give you a macro plan or calorie counting or whatever, and you're going to be able to do that. And maybe it'll work for you because you don't have a history of, any and all this stuff that you and I who are listening have. And so this is just, it's so hugely important to me, because I will not take on a client who wants their primary and only goal to be weight loss, right? It can be like a main primary goal, but it can't be the only goal. And I make no promises, right? I do not guarantee those results, because here's the thing. You can control and change your behavior, but you can't control when and how your body loses fat. You have zero control over that. And the great irony is the more that you try to control it, the harder and harder it gets, right? The tighter you pull in the reins on what you eat and how much you're eating and what you're allowing, the harder and harder it gets, because then there's a bigger rebound effect, right? It's kind of like the laws of physics. When you bounce a ball lightly, it bounces up lightly. When you slam a tennis ball against the ground, it flies back up with force. The way that we exist around food in our bodies operates under the same principle, right? When you rein things in and put some boundaries and structure in place that feels gentle, there's not a whole lot of pushback. But when you really like nail that shit down, right? And you restrict and you go hardcore and you cut stuff out, the bounce back effect is huge. The cravings go up, the food noise goes up, the urges to eat go up, and you end up having a binge on the weekend. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm hoping that that analogy maybe clicks for some of you. Because these laws of, I mean, that's like a law of physics around the bouncing of the ball, but the kind of the interplay between like philosophy and science and behavior and psychology is sometimes so fascinating. And there's like an interplay, and there are a lot of parallels. Just like the way like this is different, this is how my brain works, right? Our circulatory system, right? We have veins and that go into capillaries and they branch off. And that's how our body that's how our blood supply works, and how, our body gets the nutrients that it needs circulating throughout and all that. If you've ever looked at a leaf, right? Leaves have veins, and think about the roots of a tree kind of branch off and branch off and branch off and branch off. And there's so many parallels in these different forms of existence. Just like, we talk about graded exposure kind of in therapy, and around being around certain foods is no different than progressive overload and strength training and immunotherapy for food allergies, where you expose yourself to something that in some cases can be like toxic and poisoning with food allergies, or that just feels really scary and challenging, and your body builds up a capacity to tolerate it. And that happens biologically and chemically, and it happens mentally and emotionally. I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, and so I'm going to rein myself back in. But I wanted to just talk about in an episode how weight loss happens as a side effect of the work that we do. I had another client, I'll share another example, who kind of similar. She had gained weight, tried different things, would lose some weight, it would come back, the whole like back and forth. Nothing was really permanent. And when she came to me, one of the first things that we do is we talk through, what are you eating on a daily basis, right? What does that look like? What do the weekends look like? What do you think are kind of some of the biggest contributors to why this has been such a struggle for you? And immediately I look at what she's eating, and she's eating a shit ton of snacks. I mean, she is eating like every 2 hours every day. And I'm like, oh, boom. Like this is a huge contributor. And we started looking at why that was happening, right? We didn't just say, well, no more snacks. We didn't just say like, start eating bigger meals. That was something we did, but we were looking at, well, what's driving this? It was partially her schedule, right? It was partially different things that were going on in her life, some circumstantial things. It was partially the way that she was thinking about and was taught to think about food. Some of us are taught to eat every 2 to 3 hours. I mean, I've tried that diet a million fucking times, to stoke your metabolism diet. It's fucking bullshit. There's zero science that backs that up. If you like to do it and it works for your life, okay, that's a separate thing. So we started looking at this and identifying ways to bulk up her meals a little bit more so that she wouldn't need that snack. And it was a gradual process. And what happened over time is she started to eat bigger meals. Over time, she started to eat fewer snacks. This resulted in her eating less food overall, resulted in her losing 15 pounds over the course of 4 to 5 months. And again, that wasn't because we just had stopped eating snacks. We were looking at, well, why was she eating the snacks? Why did she need them? What did her day look like? How was she spending her time? How was she thinking about food? What were the reasons for the snacks? What purposes were they serving for her? and using that way in, right? So that's kind of just like another little example of weight loss as a side effect of changing your behaviors around foods. So I feel like there was so much more I wanted to say, but I didn't make notes on this one before. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. So if you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I've done everything and I've lost weight and I've gained it back and it's not fucking working, it's because you've never looked at your behavior around food. And that's what I do. That's what I'm an expert at. That is what I was born to do. It's what I fucking love doing. It's like my own little version of detective work. We will look at and snuff out the sources of why you have gained weight, why you can't lose weight, why you have gained and lost and gained and the whole thing. And we will start to change that behavior, which will then change what you're eating, which will result in weight loss as a byproduct, as a side effect. And you'll feel so fucking good about yourself because of this, that you'll also be relying less on the scale for the first time in your life. And it is just literally the best. Like the best, capital T, capital B. There's nothing fucking better because it has a ripple effect into every other part of your life. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you for listening. I'm going to be talking about weight loss. And if that's helpful for you, great. And if it's not, you're an adult, you're a human, you can choose not to listen. But again, I know that most of you out there are struggling with this, and I'm going to address it, and I'm going to address it head on, and I'm going to stop beating around the bush, and I'm going to stop caveating it, I'm going to stop watering it down, and I'm going to talk about it in the way that I coach it because I believe in it, and as I know it works. It worked for me. It works for my clients. It's based on the science of behavior change, right? When people talk about evidence-based, is the last thing I'm going to share. You hear the term evidence-based thrown around all the time. Here's what that actually means. It's made up of three things. One, it's based on actual research, right? What does science show? How does the human body actually work? And what research and what information is there? High quality research, because you can cherry pick a lot of shitty research out there. What methodologies and what do we know from research that we can draw on and put into practice kind of in day-to-day life, right? That's one piece of being evidence-based. The second piece is your own lived experience, okay? I coach this work because I lived it and I love it. And I think that women who are going through what we are going through with disordered eating, with yo-yo dieting, with an obsession on food and food noise are a vastly underserved and overlooked population. It's just become normalized, right? Just being on a diet is just like a normal way of life. It's not normal. It's not normal to live that way. It's fucking miserable. So my own lived experience, and then what I have witnessed working with my clients, right? What has been their lived experience. Every individual I've worked with has similarities, but also a shit ton of differences. And I have seen what has worked and what hasn't worked, generally speaking, but then also for different types of people in different situations. And so then I can use my expertise in knowing what works for different situations, and I can draw on that when I am working with a new client and I see their background, their history, their preferences, their lifestyle, their behaviors, and I know what has worked for people similar to their situations, what hasn't worked, and we come up with a plan, again, based on the science, my lived experience, and all of the knowledge that I have from working with all of the women that I have worked with over the past 5 years, really over the last 14 years, since I started teaching yoga 14 years ago. That's what evidence-based means. And so I coach in an evidence-based manner. And I just wanted to share that because that term is really being thrown around out there. And I think that most people don't actually know what it means. People who are using it don't know what it means. So, all right. I'm out. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. I really appreciate you. It means everything to me when you listen to this podcast. And I'll be back next week. Always. See you then.